Hello, welcome to Lil's Vintage World. I hope you're all doing really well. Today is my February 2020 reading wrap-up of all the books that I read in the month of February that haven't appeared in either their individual book reviews or group book reviews like my history book reviews, etc. I will do my best to leave links in the description bar below, so let's just crack on with it because I've got quite a few to share with you. So starting off, I read quite a new book to me actually. This is Angleys, Harbour Street. This is my very first Angleys. So we picked this up, myself, my boyfriend and puppy, in an independent bookshop. I was just having a browse and actually it was my boyfriend who spotted it on the shelf, and as I like watching Vera, he thought I might enjoy reading Vera, and it turns out I did. So this one, Harbour Street, is first of all set on a train. It's around Christmas and this woman gets on the train, but then there's this snowstorm and stuff and everyone has to get off the train and like wait for the replacement service sort of thing. But this old woman doesn't get off the train, and that's because she has been stabbed to death. She is dead. She has been murdered. Dun dun dun. And Vera is going in to investigate. I was a little bit anxious going into this because I really enjoyed watching the series and I enjoyed all the characters and I enjoyed the storylines, but I never read any of the books and I didn't want the books to kind of ruin the TV series for me if I adored the books more or if I felt like the characters didn't intertwine. But actually I really enjoyed this. I thought it was really good. I thought the character of Vera, played by Brenda Blethyn, get my words out, in the TV series, I think she does an actually really good job of playing Vera. I really liked Vera in this, and as I was reading it I was imagining Brenda Blethyn, which doesn't generally speaking happen to me. Usually the characters that I imagine when I read a book are not the characters that you see on screen, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It was a proper, although I'm not too keen on the term, page turner. It was really addictive. All I wanted to do was read it. I could easily read, you know, a couple of 100 pages a day, and I absolutely sped through it. I think I finished this in about 2-3 sittings, something like that. It was great. I will definitely pick up some more of Angleys' Vera work in the future. I think I'll probably pick it up on my Kindle though, just because there's quite a few already and she is still writing them, so I don't want to just end up with this mass of detective fiction work that I have with, say, Agatha Christie. I just don't have the space on my shelves, so I think in the future I will carry on picking up the works, but I'll get them on my Kindle. So yeah, 4 stars from me, and it really surprised me because as a rule I don't really like modern crime. I find it too scary, too gory, not for me. But this, it was a good balance actually, and yeah, would definitely recommend, especially if you're like me and you don't like the gore and the guts and stuff. That was good. The next book I picked up is historical fiction, but it's YA historical fiction. This is Things a Bright Girl Can Do by Sally Nichols. Now, generally speaking, I don't read YA. I never read YA when I was a teenager, although we didn't call it YA, we called it teen fiction, but whatever. I never read YA back then. It's usually the writing that I don't like, but this, it surprised me. So this book is set at the early part of the 20th century and it's about these different young people and their involvement with the women's suffrage movement. So we have this kind of upper class young girl and her gentleman friend, boyfriend sort of thing, and it's about their relationship. And then we have this slightly younger 2 girls and their relationship with the suffrage movement, but also their relationship together. So this book is a historical fiction, but it's got an LGBT plus thing in there as well, which was great. They also talked about vegetarianism and just generally things that often are forgotten in historical fiction when it comes to suffragettes. So there were suffragettes that were lesbians, and there were suffragettes that were quite often vegetarians, and it's nice to see that's been placed in a book, so young adults can actually learn about it within historical fiction. I liked that element to it. I liked this book, however, it is quite big, it is quite a chunky monkey. It took me a while to read. I mean, it's over 400 pages. Yeah, just over 400 pages. And I felt like it was a bit fillery at times. Like we go one chapter on the young couple, the teenage girl and the teenage lad, and then we go to the slightly younger teenage girls, and we keep changing like that through the chapters. And I felt like sometimes there were chapters that were literally just filler chapters before we get to the next one with the girl and the girl, or the girl and the lad, whatever it was. I just felt sometimes it was just like we shove it in there just because it's got to be in that order. And yeah, I didn't like that. I thought it was longer than it needed to be. Overall, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars, but I do think quite a bit of it could have been cut out. I would say if you are after historical fiction, maybe YA on the suffragette movement, then actually it is a good one to read. But yeah, it's good. Wasn't great, but yeah, I still enjoyed it. Right, next, sticking with kind of younger theme, I picked up The Tales of Bede the Bard by J.K. Rowling. I never read this, and I found it at a charity shop for £1, and I was like, oh, I'll pick that up, thank you very much. I felt a bit funny about this. Now, of course, this is a collection of short stories written by J.K. Rowling, as if it is like what it is in Harry Potter. I enjoyed the tale of the 3 brothers, which of course appears in Harry Potter. The rest of them, meh. They were okay. Some I didn't like at all and felt quite bored throughout them. Overall, I gave it 2 stars. I think if you're a fan of Harry Potter, then yeah, okay, it's okay and one to read. If you're not a fan of Harry Potter, I wouldn't stay anywhere near it, but I'm glad that I've read it just because I am a fan of Harry Potter, so I could say I've read it, but it wasn't anything great. Sorry. Then I thought I'd go back to the historical fiction, so I thought I'd pick this up. I'd had this kind of sat around for a little while. This is The 9-Day Queen by Ella March Chase. Now, I finally got around to it in February because I just tried to read this quite a few times over the last few months and not succeeded, but I finally persevered and got through, and I didn't love it. So this is, it says The 9-Day Queen, so it's meant to be about Lady Jane Grey, but it's not really about Lady Jane Grey, because if you know what happens to her, that happens quite early on in the book, and the rest of it's kind of like about her sisters and her family and stuff, and it's meh. It's okay. I wasn't a fan of the writing style. I felt there was quite a few Americanisms in it as well, and yeah, it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't, you know, historical fiction that you want to feel literally like you've just fell down the rabbit hole like Alice in Wonderland and you've been transported back to that period. I didn't feel like that at all. Just, yeah, not for me. I don't think I'll pick up any more of her work in the future, but if you do know of any great historical fiction around that period that isn't Alison Weir, because I've read them all, let me know in the comment section because I would like to read some more. Right, then I picked up The Road to Grantchester by James, I think it's pronounced Runcie, but I'm not 100% sure. So this is the prequel. This is book 0. Or -1, whatever you want to think of, before the Grantchester Mysteries. Now, similar to Vera, I have watched the show but not read the books, and so when I saw this in a bookshop, I thought I will give this a try because I love the TV show, so I'll try it. But this is the prequel, and I really needed to read some of the mysteries first. This book is set in 3 parts, and it's not really a mystery per se. There isn't a mystery element to it, but it's life before that, so his life during the war and his life afterwards and stuff like that. It was okay, but I didn't get from it what I needed to get from it, which was due to the fact that I haven't read any of the mysteries. I needed to go and read some mysteries and fall in love with the book character of Sydney Chambers, so I think that's what I'm going to do next. So I kind of have given this a cautious 2 because I know it's not a 2-star because I need to read some more, but it is at the moment. I think that makes sense. But if you have read some Grantchester Mysteries, then go and read that. Put that like that. Right, the next book was a reread for me. I'm going to struggle holding this up because this is really heavy. But this is Lighter Than My Shadow by Katie Green. This, if you've watched my channel for a while, was my favourite book, I think, of the year 2018. I think that is correct. This is a graphic memoir of Katie's young life with battling eating disorders. So she has anorexia, and then she goes through binging. There's also a time where she is trying to, you know, conquer this and go through recovery, and she goes through different therapists and different ways to conquer this eating disorder. But then she comes across this guy, and he is meant to be in a position of power and a position of trust, and he's there to, you know, help her get over this disorder, and he sexually abuses her, and it is shocking. This book is about eating disorders and coping your life with one, and your life continuing when you have one, and trying to recover from one. I haven't read it since, I think, when I first did, which was 2018. I've read little snippets here and there. And as someone who has had eating disorders in the past before, a lot of it I do resonate with Katie, and I'm like, oh wow. And then I realise how far I have come when I read things like this, and yeah, it's still just as brilliant and as poignant and as moving as it was when I read it all the way through the first time. And yeah, I highly recommend this to anyone. But I have to say, books on eating disorders are hard, and if you have had an eating disorder, you don't want to be triggered into relapsing. So think cautiously about picking this book up if you think it will trigger you, and if you think it would, stay clear of it, because it's not worth you going down that slippery slope. Right, then I read a classic. Then I picked up The New Moon with the Old by Dodie Smith. Dodie Smith is famous for books like I Capture the Castle, which I own but haven't read, whoopsie daisy. She's also famous for, of course, 101 Dalmatians. This is an adult book of hers, and this was published in 1963. And we start with this big kind of house in the country, and a new kind of secretary come housekeeper sort of woman has been employed, called Jane. And she gets there, but very swiftly the dad, Rupert Carrington, is like, I've got to go, I've got to flee the country, I'm in trouble with the police, here's like a month's wages, can you set up my children, because they're going to have to work now to pay for the house and pay for the upkeep of things in order to live, can you just help them establish themselves? And she's like, okay, and that's what she does. So this book is set into different books. So book one is Jane, and then after that we go through the children. So book two is Mary. Mary's the youngest daughter, and she wants to be an actress, but she's actually still at school. And then we have book three, which is Drew, one of the sons. Book four, which is Claire, and book five, which is Richard. My favourite of these was book three, Drew, followed by book four, Claire. I really enjoyed them, and just overall I really enjoyed the writing style. It felt brilliant to read something that I was so addicted to. It was a big change for me because I have read 101 Dalmatians and I enjoyed it, but I didn't love the writing style, whereas this, I loved the writing style. The only thing that kind of lets it down for me is the chapter of Mary. Now Mary, the youngest daughter, really got on my nerves. And I think it's just a personal choice thing, and, you know, personalities clashing, but she really got on my nerves. So her chapter, I was like, oh, I just want to like poke you in the eye, love, you're so annoying. But I did really, really enjoy the book. Rating wise, a 4.5 sort of star. It was really, really good, and I would highly recommend you to pick it up because it is great, and I'm definitely going to pick more of her work up in the future. I do own 2 other books. This book was sat on my shelf for ages, and just suddenly I fancied reading it, so hopefully I will read the others that I have of hers sooner rather than later. And then I did another reread. Last but not least, I reread Giant Days Volume 1. Of course I did, because I can't go too long without rereading Giant Days. So the latest volume, which I think is volume 12, I want to say, is it 12? It's 12, I just checked, will be coming out in March, mid-March. And so I was like, right, I'm going to reread the series to get me back up to date so that when the new one comes, it's all fresh in my head. So I thought, let's start right at the beginning again with volume 1, and I utterly adored it. It's so brilliant. If you've never read it, I talk about Giant Days all the time, but it's about 3 girls, Daisy, Esther and Susan, and their time at university and all the different things that they get up to. So in this one we have Esther trying not to cause drama. We have 3 girls with freshers flow and all these different things. It's not one big subplot, it's just each little comic is one sort of plot, but it's just a continuation of their life at university, and it is amazing. It's my favourite comic book series. I rave about it all the time for a reason, because it's just brilliant. So 5 stars, obviously. So there we go, that is it. That is all the books that I read in February that haven't featured in individual reviews or wrap-ups. Let me know in the comment section if you've read any of them and what you make of them, or recommend me some books. I'm always up for some recommendations, particularly of historical fiction, like I mentioned earlier. So that's it for the video. Take care, and I shall see you soon for the next one. Bye for now.